Real quick, before we start this podcast episode, I just want to say thank you for tuning into the Marc Colcer podcast. I know you've got a million things that you could be doing right now, and the fact that you're taking time out of your day to watch this podcast episode truly means the world to me, and I just want to say thank you for that. If you'd like to continue to support the podcast, right below this video, if you could hit the subscribe button, and then, hey, if you got some more time and you want to hit the download button, the comment button, the like button, the share button, any of those buttons, it's greatly, greatly appreciated. It helps for other people to find out about the podcast, and it helps for you to be notified about future episodes. So if you guys could take a quick second, hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate that. Outside of that, this episode and every other episode is brought to you guys by Roast Umber Coffee. As some of you guys know, I co-founded Roast Umber Coffee, and we have the greatest farmers in Guatemala and Honduras and the greatest roaster in Grand Rapids, Michigan, all to bring you guys the greatest cup of coffee possible. So if you'd like to try it out, go to our website, use the coupon code MARC30, and you're going to get 30% off your coffee. Now on to the episode. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Welcome to the Marc Colcer Podcast. But boys, last night was a great time, huh?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I appreciate you having us out. It was, great just always linking up with people in the space that are doing cool shit, and, the intimate fucking close together, get-togethers are sick.
That's always my favorite part about things like the space. I mean, about this space in general is that, one, there's so many, people that are here that are in the space and everything like that. But then everybody's just down to shoot the shit, get to know each other, find out more about what you're doing, kind of run random ideas past each other. And like, that's always one, because that's how we grow. Like, that's how we learn. That's how we, because nobody has all of the ideas. So you have to kind of have this like idea incubator. And when you have all these people who are together just shooting the shit, like that's when you're going to get the greatest ideas possible. So
yeah. And every time I leave, an event like that or a dinner like that or whatever, I'm always super stoked to get home and, get on my laptop and just start cooking. Cause I'm always, the creative juices are just flowing, talking to, so many talented people in the space.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally what got me to, like, want to stay in this space is that, like, as I started meeting people, and I'd be like, oh, so, like, what do you do outside of this? And they'd be like, and I was like, oh, okay, we got some real smart people in this space, right? And then you have conversations with them, and and when you really take, like, a room like that, if you go around the table, just, hey, so what do you do? Kind of what's your track record? How'd you get into this and everything like that? And then you start running, like, here are my current problems with what I'm doing, either my podcast or your project or, like, everybody always has problems.
Yeah.
And so when you have, like, a group like that who you can then rely on for, like, just bouncing ideas off of each other, and it's just a fresh perspective, like, man, that's the shit we need. And like you said, it's like you go home after that and you're just jacked up.
I'm just
like,
ready to start working.
Yeah, I want to get some work done. I
was working last night until like 3 a.m. after we left. So.
There we go. That's the grind.
Man.
That's the grind. So, all right. So for people who don't know who you guys are, can you give a brief intro to yourselves?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm BoomBox Jim, co-founder and CEO of BoomBox Labs. We have Boom Box Market that we've built and just recently launched Raccs NFT.
There we go.
Cool. Noob Down Money on Twitter. Pat and COO of BoomBox Labs. And excited to be here. Talk about Raccs, talk about BoomBox.
Excited to have you guys here.
Fuck
so,
yeah,
Pat, why don't we start with you? But can you give me a little bit of your background before getting into NFTs, before getting into crypto, all of that? What were you doing with your life?
Yeah, so I was a musician my entire life. My whole family's been musicians, and I've been around like the live entertainment industry for like my entire life. Started playing guitar when I was like 6 or 7, singing. Was making beats when I was 14. I was rapping at 16 with a bunch of local people. Made our Hula Gang Records, which was our record label and our brand and our merch brand and stuff. And I learned a lot about like brand building and like event hosting and stuff like that in those days. And started taking it seriously as a career after high school. We were hosting shows all the time all over the GTA, and doing local stuff too. And when I first got when I first got into NFTs, like I knew there was going to be a connection there with me. I didn't see a lot of music stuff going on in the NFT space, and Jim noticed the same thing too. And before NFTs, we connected in his recording studio. He has a recording studio in Toronto that I did a couple songs at, and we ended up connecting later on down the road when I got into Web3. He saw the stuff that I was posting on Instagram and stuff about like, my NFT purchases. This was like peak Euphoria Bull Run 2021, right? So he was like, I don't know what's going on here. He started digging into it a little bit, and then him and Shoddy reached out and asked me a couple questions. Ended up onboarding them, and Jim had this really cool idea. He was like, I see a lot of the love for the one-of-one space in Solana and Ethereum and stuff. Musicians deserve this kind of same shine. And I was like, yeah, dude, like they totally do. So that's how we conceptualized Boombox Market, and we've been working on it now for like a year and a half. And yeah, it's been going really, really well. It's the best job I've ever had, dude. You know, it's the first job I'm like super, super passionate about, and like that I really, really believe in. Right. So, yeah, when I first got into NFTs, when I first got into NFTs, I was just like trading, like just, you know, like leverage trading and gambling on just like mints and stuff like that. But it wasn't until, you know, we started cooking up Boombox Market is when, you know, I started like seeing like the utility side of things really start, like, you know, I could see the potential there. Right. And yeah, it's been a grind ever since, man. And I love it. You know, it's a 7-day job, working 16-hour days. Me and Jim are both super, super dedicated. And you know, I'm super happy with the team that we put together, and, you know, the product that we ship to market. And, you know, I'm excited for the future because it's only going to get better from here.
There we go. So Jim, what about you?
Fuck yeah, man. You know, been hustling for years. Like, it was a music producer for a while. That sort of transitioned to like artist development, artist branding, at the same time as doing all that stuff. Was introduced to the e-commerce world sort of through a buddy of mine, and started like designing UI and working on e-commerce stuff, marketing campaigns, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, dude, just been hustling for years, like by all means necessary, sort of finding a way to make shit work. And, you know, whether it's, you know, music production, converting that to a studio, taking the studio stuff and then, you know, mixing that with these artists that are coming in and have questions about, you know, the landscape of music and stuff. And sort of showed its face when I saw this guy over there, you know, putting out all his NFT stuff. I was like, dude, why the fuck are these people buying $50,000 fucking JPEGs?
The number one question.
Yeah, dude. And, you know, it was like, well, there must be something here. Let's dive in. And, you know, got introduced to just sort of the use cases of blockchain. And I was like, oh shit, like there's a ton of benefits, you know, for music, for brands in total. Like there's so much that can be done here. And it would be really cool to see something happen for music in all regards, whether it be songs, samples, instrumentals. There's so much here. And yeah, dude, we're fortunate enough to, you know, build it alongside the Foxes early on. Those guys were instrumental in bringing our ideas to life. And Web3, dude, like for us has been nothing more than a blessing of the ability to ideate something and then bring it into existence. It's been the craziest shit just to see. But yeah, man, you know, we wake up hungry every single day to make this something that makes sense and that has application and that pushes, you know, what NFTs can do and what blockchain can do, rather than the echo chamber that sort of exists within, you know, NFT projects that are just recycling the same things over and over again. We're hyped to bring something different and make it work and find that path to whatever that is. And, you know, over the last week or stuff, you know, we've been pivoting pretty heavy. And I think that, you know, yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later on. But
Yeah.
That's the gist of it.
Yeah, no, and I love it because I feel like, you know, a lot of people who get into this field come from the creative field. And the creative field, man, it's one of those things where, like, if somebody's watching this and you don't work in the creative field, like when you work in the creative field, you have to fucking grind because there is no like roadmap in terms of like, here's what you need to do to be successful in music, or here's what you need to do to be successful as a photographer or podcaster or whatever. You just grind and you try shit and you see what works, right? And I think the NFT space is a lot of the same thing of like, the possibilities are endless, but it's also you have to see what works and what doesn't, and it's a field where you can really determine kind of what happens, and you have a lot of, you know, power in that situation of like you can truly have freedom to do whatever you want, and like you have to see if, you know, if people like it, if the market receives it well and stuff like that. But it's the same thing as music. You know, if you put out a song, you can put out whatever kind of music you want to put out, even if somebody's like, hey, I don't think people are gonna fuck with this, that's fine. If you put it out and those people are proven wrong, then like the market spoke. The market said, hey, we love this, right? And so that's kind of my favorite aspect about this is like there's no rules. You could do whatever you want, and like if people love it, then great, you found something. But like just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean people don't want it. And I remember like Drake, when he put out his last album, I remember there were all these people that were like, because it had like kind of this big EDM feel to it, and it was like very not just like EDM, but it was like almost like European house music, you know, whatever. And I remember he had this quote. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something like, "They don't get it now, but they will soon." And it was something that I was like, damn, I respect that energy of like him just kind of being like, oh, like you haven't gotten to this level yet. You'll catch up. Like it was actually that the quote was something along those lines. Like you're not here yet. You'll catch up. And it was like, damn, that confidence of like, I know what I'm doing is it. Like, and you just got to catch up, and you'll catch up in due time. And I feel like NFTs for a lot of things is that, right? Like, a lot of people sit here and they're kind of like, what the fuck are you guys doing, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, hey, in due time, you'll catch up. Right now, we're building out the use cases for why this makes sense. And over time, you'll see that, right? So,
Yeah.
So, okay, so walk me through, like, you know, when you guys first got into space, were you guys trading? What was your experience like? Did you, you know, when did you, I guess, see, okay, hey, I'm in the space, I'm learning, I'm buying projects, and I'm seeing kind of there's this missing section of the space that needs what we should end up building.
Yeah. When I first got into crypto, I was actually on someone's couch in BC, just couch hopping, and I saw this crypto.com ad, and I was like, oh, what's going on here? And a bunch of the algorithm on YouTube just started sending me like BitBoy and like a bunch of stuff and like a bunch of like leverage traders and stuff. So, you know, I bought my first crypto back in 2020. And I immediately just started leverage trading BTC because I'd see all over the timeline like people making like $250,000 like on leverage trades and stuff. I was like, oh my God, like I got to get my piece of this. And then I got into it and I was just getting wrecked left, right, and center, like just losing so much money that I didn't have at the time because I was working a job, right? And yeah, you know, I started screwing around on Ethereum a little bit, and then I heard about NFTs right around when Bored Apes minted, and they just took off. They started going crazy, right? And then Pudgy Penguins minted. I minted those too, and you know, those started taking off as well. I was like, oh my God, what are these? Like these are like, why are people buying these kind of thing, right? And I eventually got it because I was like, oh my God, like I actually like this, you know, this little turtle that looks like me that's got a headband and stuff like that. So, and I felt emotional connections to things when I wanted to sell them, and I was like, oh, I get it now. You know what I mean? So, and then I checked this site that lets you check like the Ethereum gas that you spent. And I'd spent like $7,000 on gas, and like that was $7,000 I didn't have. I was like, what am I doing? Like, oh my God, this cost me so much. So I started screwing around on different L1s like Tezos and Solana and stuff like that. And then the Solana community ended up being crazy because I minted these pixel monkeys, and you know, they were ripping. And everyone in the Discord and on the Twitter timeline and stuff was super, super active, and it was like a really, really cool place to be. And you know, present yourself, like whether you wanted to be anonymous or doxed or whatever. And I really started to get it, and that's when I really dove in 100%, was when like SMBs minted and like Thugbirds minted and stuff. And yeah, like I personally had a really big connection with Thugbirds because they had this trait that like had a favorite rapper like Biggie and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I like hip hop, you know what I mean? I like music. Like this is kind of my thing, right? I ended up reaching out to the creator, and I was like, we should do this like a music thing. You know what I mean? Like we should do like, you know, what, I don't know what it's going to be, but like maybe we should do like a record label or like maybe like something to do, because like there's such a big musician community here. And like, that's the moment I really dove in, and I was like, oh my, like I really connect with a lot of these people on the timeline, and like whether we're talking about crypto or Web3 or whatever, that's, you know, that's really when I dove into Web3 and NFTs.
It's always interesting, man. Like there's so many people. I was talking with somebody yesterday, and they were like, oh yeah, like my brother does this in like sports gambling, and I was like, holy shit, I've watched some of your brother's content.
Right.
And it was just like this, you know, really it's crazy how many people have similar interests in this space, right?
Yeah.
And so you meet somebody, start talking about music, and you realize how many people are in music that are, you know, that are in this space, right?
Yeah.
And then you think about, you know, somebody who has passion in videography, and there's a ton of people who are great in the creative field of videography, and then you've got people who are big into sports, and people are big into like every different aspect, fashion, you know, everything, right? So, but Jim, what was it like for you? Was it, you know, did you get in and start buying shit? How was it working?
I was, yeah, no. So I first took notice. A bunch of guys that I was working with were talking about Binance Smart Chain shitcoins, and you know, like I'll come rocking all that fucking shit. Yeah, so I originally got into it, and then sort of was like, all right, this is all like, you know, relatively stupid. But then saw money, you know, posting all this stuff, and then started taking a look at NFTs, and I was like, dude, like digital art is worth something. So I mean, you know, if it's on chain and you can actually verify that it's not just a copy and paste, that this is actually the digital asset that's being owned, you know, the core of what NFT technology is, you know, I was like, yeah, there's got to be something here. So then just started hopping on Twitter. I think back in the time, like there was like follow these X accounts to start learning about certain things that are going on in the space, what to look for, what not to look for. And then, yeah, traded some NFTs for a while. And then I think was exploring like different marketplaces and stuff one day, and jumping into like the one of one space and seeing these artists that are dropping like limited run, like 20, 100 collection or 100 piece collections. And yeah, it sort of stoked the idea for Boombox just because I used to, beat marketplaces, sample marketplaces. There were some single sale platforms that I was familiar with, but was like immediately able to draw the connection. And I think the wildest thing, dude, is just seeing the way that money moves. I mean, seeing, in JPEGs and in the bull run at the time was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And on top of that, the direct access to incredibly talented people, whether it be developers, content creators, just people who have amazing ideas to build cool shit. But the community that it exists in, and that direct where you can just shoot somebody a DM and they're working on some crazy thing. Like even like we went to NFT NYC, and that was like my first experience at sort of a crypto event. I was like, dude, this is fucking wild. Like the fact that everyone from all different facets of the world are coming together in the name of, creating NFTs, even in the name of their bags, whatever it may be. The fact that everyone is coming to these events and, you're just immediately linking up with all these different people is crazy. So, I mean, it's been cool to see how I first got into it, and then how once you see it IRL and like even shit like this, like it's just like to see the real world sort of turn, that it's much more than just like a small community on the internet, or like it's actually a real thing,
Yeah, I mean, even last night, for example,
Yeah.
we had people from 4 different countries there.
Wild, man.
Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
When you really think about how many times in life you've had a group of people to get together, and there's people from multiple countries, just 2 countries, right?
Yeah.
We had people from 4 different countries last night. Like that is wild, right? That's the stuff that like mind blows me about this space on a regular basis. It's like you're not just like finding the top talent, the most creative people in your local area. It's like people from all over the world, right? Which is by far my favorite aspect of it, because I think you have to be forward thinking to be in this space, right? And I think back to like the early days of Instagram, and the people that were really creative in like 2012 on Instagram, like the Jay Alvarez and Alexis Ren of the world, who were like the first people to do like travel content, right? And then their content blew up because they were the first people to do it, right? And I think a lot about that with the NFT space of like right now, it's a lot of like trying to see what works, right? And getting really creative and thinking about what can we do, what can we build that people are going to want, how can we get people from outside the space to want to come into this space, right? And then what's going to make them want to stay here and grow the space and everything like that. But then once we have all of those answers, like once we figure that out and there's millions and millions and millions of people in this space, there's not really that room for growth, right? Which is what gets me excited about the time we're in right now, because this is the time where there is that growth. This is the same thing as Instagram 2012, right? Or 2011, whatever, right? And all those people that were killing it in 2011 are huge now in social, and they've done great things. They've gone on to do really, really big things. I mean, like, bro, I think back to like Mr. Beast, biggest creator in the world. Do you guys know how he became famous?
Giving stuff away, right?
No,
But
far
he
before
was
that.
hustling on YouTube for a while,
100%.
right? Like, dude, he was,
His first video that I think went viral was him saying Logan Paul's name 100,000 times.
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah,
that. It
yeah,
might have been
yeah.
10,000 times. But it was him just saying, he was sitting there with a mic going, Logan Paul, Logan Paul, Logan Paul, Logan Paul, Logan
Yeah.
Paul. And it just went so viral because people were like, that's the stupidest fucking thing.
Yeah.
But also like, I would not sit there and say that person's name so many times over. And so he had been like trying to be, I want to be a YouTuber, I want to be a YouTuber. And then that fucking hit, and look what he's doing now, right? So I think it's the same kind of thing when people are like, this NFT space, like, are we like, what are we doing? We're selling JPEGs, whatever. It's like Mr. Beast was saying Logan Paul's name, 10,000 times or 100,000 times, whatever it was, into a mic, and he blew up after that. And now look at him, look at the shit he's doing. And it's like, so a lot of times, like what we're doing is like, it's like, yeah, it looks dumb till it isn't. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there were people that said to Mr. Beast at that time, like, dude, what are you doing? You go by the name Mr. Beast. And, like, you're not a beast. You're not a big-ass dude by any means, whatever, in terms of, like, size. I actually think he was tall. But, but like, it's like, you go by Mr. Beast, and you just said Logan Paul's name a fuck ton of times. It's like, how dumb is that, right?
Yeah.
But then you think about it, where he's at now, and it's like, hey, it's not so dumb anymore, is it, right? Same shit with, like, there's going to be people that go, wait, you guys selling NFTs, like you guys are selling JPEGs and people are buying them. Why? And then it's dumb until it isn't, right? So okay, so give me, for people who are watching this, if they're not familiar, give me like the 30-second elevator pitch on what is Boombox and then what is Raccs.
For sure. Boombox Market is a open to use Web3 music marketplace for samples, instrumentals, and songs. There's other way, like audio visuals and stuff like that, but pretty much a fully versed music marketplace on the blockchain.
There we go.
And for Raccs is a dive in and experiment into mass branding and mass media as it relates to music, as it relates to other things that may have a contextual path to bring this Web3 technology and you know, benefit Boombox a little bit, to bring it to as many eyes as it possibly can, through content, through, you know, music, through whatever makes sense at the time. Yeah, it is just an ongoing thing to push the boundaries of what's possible in NFTs and do our best to bridge that, you know, that interim period of the disconnect seems to be there. And it seems like we're going through it now. And it, like, bear market conditions seem to have pushed this, which is a great thing, that like there's nothing different necessarily between a Web 2 creator and a Web 3 creator. It's all about where you're pushing that content and what echo chambers you're subjecting yourselves to. So it's really, you know, trying to take a Web 3 approach a Web 2 approach to a Web 3 brand.
Yeah, no, I fuck with that. So, okay, so give me so for people who don't know, when you talk about like Boombox and that being a marketplace for samples and for beats and everything like that, for people who don't know, samples, beats, like those are all things people use to create songs essentially. And so there are these marketplaces that exist in Web 2 for people to go and buy these things or license these things so that they can basically create music without having to have somebody playing every instrument and yada, 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 right? So in terms of that, like why did it make sense to make this marketplace, and kind of how did that idea come about, and like why is it necessary, I guess, for that to be like on chain and things like that? What were some of the benefits there when you guys were looking into that?
Yeah, you know, NFT tech at its core is verifiable ownership of a digital asset. So the way that there's, you know, a number of ways that music can benefit from that, on top of, you know, the ledger of information that is the blockchain. So verifiable ownership of a digital asset can be great for many things, you know, whether you're distributing a song, whether you're selling a beat pack, selling a sample pack. I think is, you know, the main reason why people are like, oh, why don't I just right click save? Because it's verifiable ownership of a digital asset, you know? So yeah, like, you know, there's many ways that artists can use NFT technology around their music, around their beats, around their samples. Audio visuals is a different expression of music and art all in one. So, I mean, we wanted to create a platform that was as low fee as possible to still maintain a sustainable business and set ourselves up for maximum success in the future, but not take these exorbitant fees that, you know, Web 2 companies are subject to because of payment processors or, you know, certain aspects of, you know, marketing that company, and really get down from the fees are, you know, 20 to 50% on a lot of the stuff that's being put out. So the closer that we can get to a free, open to use platform while still making it sustainable was the goal for Boombox. But I don't know if there's anything to add to that. But
yeah, you know, I just think that blockchain tech at its core, you know, like Jim said, it's important to bring to the music world, especially, you know, when we were talking last night about like licensing disagreements that go to court because, you know, no one really knows who paid for what. And being able to, you know, the songs are a different thing, but like being able to trade like beats and samples whenever you're done using them and stuff, I think that's a really big, you know, that has really big potential in the future. So, you know, it just kind of made sense to bring the initial inspiration came from like the one-of-one marketplace and how we saw these marketplaces really like exchange art and stuff like that. They were really enabling artists to make money and to, you know, get their brand out there and stuff and make a sustainable income. And we kind of wanted to show music the same love as the one-of-one art scene is getting, because we think, you know, not only is it a big expandable field in terms of like music culture and stuff that we can get into, you know, we think it's really important that, you know, bringing this tech in, you know, a digestible and palatable way for artists to utilize it, you know, to their advantage. We think there's a lot of potential there. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's something that I've thought a lot about, is that there's a lot of things in life where we buy them and we know we're only going to use them for a certain period of time. Mm-hmm. And yet we own this thing now that like is obsolete and there's nothing we can really do with it. Right. And I talk about like, for example, one of my buddies had a gym membership in LA that was a year long, right? Mm-hmm. Well, during that year, he got a new job opportunity and he moved from LA, right?
Right.
Well, now he just has this gym membership. There's nothing he can do. He can't transfer ownership of it. He can't sell it. So it's just in his name that he can't do anything with, right?
Yeah.
that's what the blockchain solves in a lot of ways, right? So if somebody buys a beat or a sample or whatever, and then they're, you know, messing with it and they're just like, this just isn't working for me. It doesn't make sense for me to utilize this. Typically in any other situation, you'd be screwed. You just kind of like, hey, well, okay, you bought it. It is what it is, right?
Yep.
Now it's something with what you guys are doing. That person would be able to then sell that back on the marketplace to somebody else who will find use out of it, right? And so it benefits everybody involved because now that instrumental or that sample or that, you know, whatever is no longer sitting in that person's inventory. It's now being used by somebody else who's going to actually put it to use instead of it just sitting there collecting dust, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that, like, when you guys first told me about that, I was like, that's super interesting. And I think, you know, it's more of like bringing the masses to what you guys are doing, because there's so many people who are pursuing music. I mean, I remember some stat. It's like the amount of people that upload a song onto Spotify every day is like, it's crazy.
It's crazy
Like,
now.
I'm not going to quote it because I don't know what the number is.
Right.
And all I know is that number keeps going up, right?
Yeah.
So every day there are companies like, I believe the big one is Splice, and some of these bigger like companies where you can go and buy different instrumentals and stuff like that. You know, all those, there's people constantly looking for platforms like what you guys are building. And then the cool part is, like, you guys can then onboard those people into other shit. Like, if you get them into the platform, then maybe if the UI experience is clean, you guys could get them into Raccs. You could get them into other NFTs. You could get them, it could be their first dip into crypto in general, right? Like, there's so many different ways that you can do it. And, like, that's why I think what you guys are doing is super fucking cool. So bring me from there. Like, how did it go from Boombox to Raccs, and like kind of what is the relationship of the two?
Yeah, man. I think, you know, the biggest thing that we've seen, and as far as what has sort of maintained and sustained a lot of the projects that exist, you know, aside from, I'm sure in a lot of them there's whether it's passive income or rewards or something from the platform that they've built, but on top of that, it's the community. So I think the opportunity, you know, I think like music and music culture is some of the coolest shit that exists. It pushes brands, it pushes fashion movements, it pushes, you know, these multiple different things that can be then associated to a community. And I think that having a community that is representative of sort of that ethos is super important, and, you know, a super appealing thing for us to be able to build something around Boombox that is a amazing tool showcasing, you know, the capabilities of Web3 and how it can be seamlessly related to Web2. But at the same time as all of these other pieces of culture, like music videos, like, you know, you can't go too far without finding music in something, whether it's a TikTok video or, you know, if you're deep in music, it's probably some music videos and whatever else. But yeah, music culture spans so many different places, and having a community that participates in that, and that we can mobilize behind Boombox and give them cool things and, you know, get them excited about this cool PFP and all this stuff is super beneficial for us. And I think, you know, really can give something of substance for people to stand behind, something that, you know, us as a company, the biggest thing that we're on is blockchain as infrastructure. And I think the more ways that we're able, and collections in general are able to showcase a clear pathway to more eyes that aren't just in, you know, the corner of Twitter that is CT. You know, we love crypto Twitter 100%, but there's so much opportunity that exists for these amazing brands that are being built in Web3 that, you know, to dive into that was something that we're like, yeah, we have to do it at the same time. As like Boombox is the tech side and Raccs is really the experimental, you know, sort of edgy culture push that we are taking to the mass marketing. We, you know, whether it's content or all these, there's so many ways that we could take Raccs that we wouldn't necessarily be able to take Boombox just given the nature of the platform. And Raccs can really, we could dive into so many different things as far as what we have planned and what we're going to try for Raccs, because that at the end of the day, that's what everyone's really doing, right? Is trying and failing and seeing what works and trying over again. But yeah, I think that's the gist of it. And the most important thing is efficiency, you know, high level execution, and the continuous ability to read what's in front of you and continue to try to push out new shit, where the efficiency to make sure you're not overspending on a bunch of shit, you know, is possible. I know I'm going on a bit of a side Raccs tangent here, but
no, you're good. You're good.
I think Raccs also, you know, affords us the opportunity where we couldn't work with some of these artists that we've talked to for Boombox. Like we've sat down with a couple big artists before, and unfortunately, you know, their hands are tied when it comes to, you know, working with us in a music stance, because, of these contracts that are in place, these big labels, things that control everything, right? So there's really nothing they can do until they get out of those contracts. But, Raccs really allows us to bring those people on and build these like mass media content pieces and stuff, and have them not break their contract, and we can still do business with them, and we can still, we've seen a lot of celebrities come into crypto Twitter, pump the floors like when they buy or whatever, and then they always end up leaving, right? And I think it's a missed opportunity from a lot of projects when they do reach out and go that way with with celebrities and stuff and really prominent musicians. I think it's a missed opportunity to have a long-term relationship with those people and not just have it as like a temporary floor price increase kind of thing. You know what I mean? So Raccs really allows us to bring those musicians that everybody knows on board with us. Oh, yep. So Raccs really allows us to bring those musicians that everybody knows on board with us, and still have them be in the the confines of their legal contracts and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think too, when it comes to like music artists, I remember when, in 2021, when every like music artist was putting out an NFT collection. I remember saying to myself at that time, I'm like, there's no way they're going to keep working on this, because for them, like, making money is easy, right? It's harder for us degens, right? So for them, it's like, okay, if they raise $1 million from Mint, well, are they really going to grind to get to the point where, like, one, there's a revenue stream from this, when it's like, in reality, they already have a shit ton of revenue streams. Two, like, are they going to really grind in order to get, like, royalty sales and things like that? I'm like, well, the odds of that are pretty low. At the end of the day, they made their quick milli and they're kind of done with it, right? But the idea of like them working with an NFT project for like a given period of time, that I think is far more realistic, because then it's more of a transactional thing, which, to be fair, that's majority of their job. Like they work in a transaction world, right? Like that's what a lot of times what that industry is. And so, it's like that. What do I think is realistic? Do I think there's a music artist out there that's going to pump a 10K collection? Probably not. Like, realistically, no, I don't think that.
Yeah.
Now, do I think down the road there might be cool things they could do in terms of like an NFT for their like a like members club or something like that? Sure. Yes, I do think there could be something that would like, give people a discount on their merch and stuff like that. Yes, I think that is a realistic thing, but that's also something that's not going to have a floor price that's crazy high. That's going to be one that's like, a 20,000 collection with a, a $10 cost, right?
Right.
But in terms of like them working with NFT collections, in terms of, once again, temporarily, I'm like, yeah, that makes far more sense and is also way less stress for them, which means they're far more likely to stick with it versus like the other thing where if you don't pump it, immediately everybody's on your ass about it. And so like, why would a music artist want that hassle? Like that to me makes no sense. So what you guys are doing, I mean, that makes perfect sense. So walk me through the timeline, because so you guys minted a few weeks ago now. By the time this comes out, it'll probably be about a month since you guys minted. And when you guys minted, we'll call it not ideal time.
Not ideal time.
Not ideal time. Nothing. Hey, it never is. It never is, right?
It's
when it comes
the biggest market nuke in 2023, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's just another typical Black Swan event that we always have in these times. But so you guys minted right around the time that the SEC sued Binance and Coinbase, right?
Yep.
Right around that time. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, great time. And so the when you're in a space like this, a lot of times I think people focus too much on like, how did you start, right? And I always kind of look at that and I'm like, do we not remember that Bored Ape took like 2 weeks to mint out? And so I think a lot of times people panic when like, hey, mint didn't go perfectly according to plans, when it's like, in reality, most mints don't go according to plans. Truly, I don't give a shit how your mint goes. What I care about is what are you doing from there? Even if your mint goes incredible, if you guys came here today and you were like, we had a 20,000 collection that sold out at 20 sold.
Yeah.
To be honest, I wouldn't really care. I would kind of be like, okay, so what are you doing now? Because once again, it does not matter how you started. It's about where you go from there. So for you guys, walk me through the timeline. When did you guys start developing the idea of Raccs? And then, how did you feel about minting, in early June? And then kind of what was that like? And then, where are we at with things now?
So the idea actually originally came from Hex. Shout out Hex from the
We
Fracture.
love Hex. We love Hex. Great guy.
I love him. I love hanging out with him. We're really close with him, and we've had calls with him, lots of calls with him. And one time, I think it was like, it must have been about 6 months ago, we were on a call with him, and he was like, "Why don't you guys drop a collection?" And we were like, "I don't know, I don't like, we haven't really like conceptualized anything. And he was just like, yeah, like, you guys need a collection. You guys need a community. You guys need to, get your word out there, and you guys need foot soldiers out there getting and spreading the word for you. And, me and Jim were kind of pondering on it. We were like, yeah, like it kind of makes a lot of sense if we execute it right. It could be a good thing for the brand and for the company. So about 6 months ago, we started, conceptualizing what Raccs would look like. It wasn't called Raccs at that point. I think it was called like Sly Street Rebellion or something. And
I'm glad you went with Raccs.
Yeah, me too. And we were looking for artists, and we ended up going with Mob Studios. They did an amazing job on the art, and they were a pleasure to work with the entire time, man. Like, shout out those guys. They're amazing. And while we were building through it out, we were just like, what is this going to look like for the community? What is this going to look like for Boombox? It's like, what we're about is, sustainable stuff. And we just wanted to make sure that it was going to be something that's going to be around in a year, 5 years, 10 years. Right. So I don't know, Jim, if you want to take it from there.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So yeah, you went over the idea, and then the biggest thing, we wanted to make sure first and foremost that the PFP looked good and that it was something that people can identify with and would be happy to throw up as their PFP. And then just, started planning out, alongside we're managing sort of putting out a ton of Boombox updates at the same time as getting out Raccs. And then we're debating on the right time to mint, and so does fucking all went to shit, well, not all of it, but you know what I mean? But like, yeah, man. And then, so mint went how it went. And, rather than, we're not excuse guys, like it's important to look yourselves in the mirror and be like, all right, we could have done this, 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 and this. We could have pivoted in this way and made sure that, really, but hindsight's fucking 2020, you know what I mean? So it's like the biggest thing that we're like, all right, what are we going to do now? Because, we've seen so many, whether it's companies or projects, come in and fucking rinse the community and take everything they can and be like, whatever, for whatever reason, we can't continue to run this. More often than not, doesn't seem to be the financial or, money side of it. A lot of people are just like, this is a lot of work. We don't know if this is going to work out. And our thing is, all right, we're going to figure out a way to make this work. Like, we are, whether it's, from the artist stuff that we were talking about, whether it's from developing, cool behind the scenes things, like, it's really important for us, for Raccs, to build efficiently and build on things that people care about and be able to develop things that still go with what the initial intention was, is to take Boombox and to take Raccs with this Web3 community and build things that can be taken to Web2 in a way that doesn't mention crypto, doesn't mention NFTs, and builds a lasting brand behind whatever we may put out in content and music and all these things. So that's sort of where we are now. And over the last week, like we had this plan for some things that, and some of them we still are going to execute on, but we realized that, roadmaps are a box.
They're a meme.
It's, if you put out a roadmap and somebody doesn't fuck with you, they're like, oh, this is all you're capable of doing. This is all you have planned for the future. So we scrapped it. Like this morning we're sitting there and we're like, fuck it. We're scrapping
it.
all of this, dude. And like, like I said, there's going to be some things that shine through the cracks and that would make sense for our community. Like, our main goal is to, as it should be for anyone, is to put on for the community in a way that sets them up for success, sets the collection up for success in the long term. And there's a ton of ways that we've been thinking about to do that we're going to execute on in the very near future. The story is far from finished. We're just fucking, I know it's the most cliche Web3 thing to say, but it's fucking just the beginning, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, too, it's like the reality of it is the people that stay building are going to be the ones that, like, when we get into that next bull, they're going to rip, right? Because it's like people respect longevity at the end of the day, right? And I think there's a lot of people that are like, hey, we didn't rip right off the bat, we're out, right? And it's like those people are never the people that I want to work with anyway, right? Like, the reality of it is, like, if you're the woe is me type and like the you should feel bad for me type, like, dude, life is just, that's just how life goes.
Yeah,
life
real.
has things, life is just a series of getting kicked in the nuts and seeing how you react to that, right? And so, it is what it is. Like, you know, you could either feel bad for yourself or you can say, hey, you know what? We have this community. We have these people now that give a shit about what we're doing. They want to see us succeed. How can we bring value to those people? And then, like you were talking about with Hex, of like, you know, you now have these foot soldiers, right? And like, that's the greatest part. Like, when I think about like my podcast, right? I don't have that. Like, I have people that support me on Twitter, and it's great, and it means a ton to me, right? But I don't have people that are financially incentivized by that, right? So people support it, but like, yeah, would they support it more if there was like an NFT that went along with that? Sure, probably, right? So like, you guys have these people that now rep your project that want to see it succeed, right? And so now, if you guys get into like a Discord chat and you're like, hey, you know, we just got back from LA. We had these conversations. Like, here are some of the ideas that we have. What are your guys' thoughts? What potential problems do you see? You have all these people that you can kind of bounce ideas off of. That's a powerful fucking thing,
It's
right?
a very powerful thing, man. And that's, you know, kind of the whole reason why we dove into the whole NFT collection thing, is because we built Boombox and we really, really believe in, you know, what it brings to the market, what it does for musicians and stuff. And the problem is, you know, that's great and everything, but you know, if no one really cares unless you're a musician, right? And like, and it's hard to get eyes on something that you believe in, just by yourself, just being a utility, right? You know what I mean? And it ended up being the right move, because Raccs brought a ton of eyes to Boombox, and it brought a ton of, you know, a ton of musicians into the community that are like, I had no idea you guys had this up and running, and I'm super glad, because this is the best thing that I've ever seen in Web3 for my music career, right? And it ended up being the right thing. You know, Mint went the way it did, and it is what it is. But at the end of the day, you know, like you said, we have this amazing group of individuals, this amazing community that we've formed, and they're loud, and they're proud, and that's the only thing we could have asked for at the end of the day, is having these foot soldiers ready to move when we say move, right? Whenever we're doing like a marketing campaign, or, you know, whether it's staying very active on the timeline, promoting the platform and the collection and stuff, you know, that is invaluable, and you just, you know, you really can't buy it. And we're in a good spot. We, you know, we never felt bad for ourselves, even as things were happening, and, you know, Mint wasn't minting out, and you know, even if floor price is down and stuff, we are in really, really good spirits, because we're me and Jim are the type of people that are going to find positives in every single negative, and try and exploit those positives as much as we can, and just block out the negatives, because you can sit here all day and think about, what did I, you know, you guys should feel, you know, like, you guys should care about what I'm doing, you know, like, I put my heart and soul into this. Why doesn't anybody care? It's like, okay, it's on us. We have to pivot some way. We have to do something and we have positives that we're working with, so let's get into it, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think people forget sometimes, like, people use DGods as like a you know, this is a project that's made it, this is a project that's got it down, you know, whatever. I think people forget that DGods in January 2022 were $100.
Bro.
People forget that all the time. And then they were, I could be a little off on that figure, but it was right around $100.
Yeah.
And then in December 2022, they were $1,000, right? Like, people forget that all the time, right? And it's like, so, you know, if you're holding a project right now, whether it's Raccs, whether it's another project, and the floor price is down, that does not mean that project is dead.
100%.
You know, when you find that the team members are still working their ass off, you should respect the hell out of that, because yeah, it's hard. This whole space is hard, right? Like, there are days that I have where I'm like, I'm overwhelmed, and I'm, you know, and I'm tired, and I'm like, those are the days where you have to pick yourself up and go, hey, I fucking got this. Let's fucking go. Let's make this huge. And like, you know, the reward down the road is going to be awesome, right? Like, I'm so excited when we get to the point of like millions of people in Web3 experiencing what the love and the fun that we've experienced, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I look forward to those days. I do know during that the time to get to those days, there's going to be some hard days, right?
Chewing glass, baby, you know, and it's
we love it.
We love it, man. It seems everything we've done, it's just, there's always some sort of setback that we could, you know, looking back, we could go, oh man, you know, it just didn't work out. But we never did. And we're never going to do that, because that's not, you know, the type of people that we are. Me and Jim are go-getters. Yeah. And you know, we'll find a positive out of any negative.
And I think, you know, we'll definitely take what needs to be learned from it and register it and be like, all right, for sure, we'll make sure that, you know, we keep this in mind in whatever other way that it shows its face in the future. But yeah, like, and I think that from, it's important right now for collections to be trying shit, to be as much shit that, like, if you have something that works, sure, I understand it is what it is, but like, if you're in a position, it's kind of a blessing and a curse, right? Like, we're in a position where we now have an open road to try as much shit as we can that, you know, don't get me wrong, like, will be executed to the highest of our possible ability. But at the same time, you know, can excite people to be a part of the collection, can excite holders. And there's so many different unique ways. We just have seen so many things that are done similarly. You know, people are trying to just reiterate the same thing over and over again without trying new shit. And we're really big on thinking outside the box and just trying new shit. And I know right now, you know, we haven't, I think it'll become obvious to people as time goes on, and as we start to execute on these things and put these things out. You know, I understand, and we appreciate the patience of people who, there may be some people who are fans of roadmaps, you know, but I think that in the long term, it'll be worth it. And having the freedom to really experiment and try shit that get the timeline popping off, just create conversation around different things, you know, like growing Web3 brands into work, like to work in Web2. Like, there's so many different things that we are planning to execute on that, yeah, we're in a blessing and a curse situation, and we're going to do whatever it takes to put on for our holders and make this into something special.
Yeah, I mean, even like people don't see it, but it's like the reason why a roadmap doesn't make a ton of sense anyways. Like the conversation we were having before we started this podcast, we sat here for an hour just shooting the shit, right? And then last night we had more conversations. I'm sure after this we'll have more conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so then when you're bringing in new ideas, then you got to pivot quickly, right? So that's where a roadmap just doesn't really work, because it's like you need to be able to pivot, because every time you have a conversation with somebody else, whether it's a community member, whether it's somebody new that's being brought onto the team, whether it's another project founder or, you know, whoever, random podcaster, you know, you never know what idea could come from one of those conversations where all of a sudden you're like, yo, we need to pivot to that like now. Like that is the idea, right?
Yeah.
And then once you try something and it starts working, you start getting traction on that. Okay, maybe that's when the new roadmap develops. But like at the same time, you know, to me, I'm like, man, anytime somebody says to me, like, we're sticking to our roadmap, I'm like, that is crazy. Like, that is just, that would be like sticking to a long when crypto's just absolutely tanking and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to ride this out, and you're just getting punished. And next thing you know, you've lost, you know, $250,000 and your family needs to set up a GoFundMe. Like at some point, cut your losses. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're stuck to that roadmap of like, this is what we're doing and we are going to go down with the ship. It's like, you know, maybe change strategy. Like maybe just if something's not working, change it. And you know, and be quick on your feet and everything like that.
I think I'm a really big fan of Frank. Frank has birthed almost every single meta on crypto Twitter, and I take a lot of inspiration from Frank because he's not afraid to do stuff like that. He was kind of the first one who was like, fuck roadmaps. We're just going to, you know, I have this cool idea. Trust me, let's do it kind of thing. And like, you know, you kind of have to have that mentality in a space that's so new. It's so fluid. You know what I mean? Something could come out next week where we're like, oh my God, we need to do that like right now. And there's no way we could have seen that coming back when we were like in roadmap era. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's kind of a meme at this point. And I think, you know, it just puts you in a box if you're going to, you know, be like sticking to your guns kind of thing, you know?
100%. So tell me about what are some projects or people in the space or whatever that you guys are a fan of, people that motivate you, people that you guys have kind of looked at. Cause I think a big part of it is like, there's a lot of people that we can learn from in this space. Right. And so every day I'm trying to learn from other people in it, whether it's a content creator, a project founder, or something along those lines. So is there anybody that sticks out to you guys?
Yeah, there's a ton, and this space is filled with people that are smart as hell and are not afraid to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, right? Frank is the one right off the bat. Hex, you know, what they did with the fracture for, you know, the first, like, the entire time, you know, like they just try and find ways. They get it, you know what I mean? Having conversations with them and you know, I've learned a lot from Hex when it comes to like, you know, how to navigate a community and like how to build a community, how to run it and stuff like that. Frank, Hex, Nom from the Monkey DAO. Nom is the chewing glass champion of CT, dude. Like he does so much work for the DAO and hasn't been paid until just very, very recently. He's been, you know, on the tools for the last year and a half, just banging it out for the love of the project, and that's something that I take away. Those are my big three anyway.
Yeah, I mean, to add on to that, obviously, Klanos are killing it. I think, they're one of the coolest things where you look at their art and their branding, and immediately your brain goes to Disney, Pixar, all these multi-million, billion-dollar studios. Is what their art seems to immediately transport you to, and then they have a bunch of creative like gamification and stuff on top of that. What I've really been fucking with recently is like the Mad Lads guys, like Armani and everyone over there. I think they're doing something super interesting while, they've created Backpack and are building that to be its own powerhouse. I think they really understand the power of content and the power of taking things and packaging them to be digestible in Web 2 and in places where there are more eyes. Like, they brought on Jakey. Fucking love Jakey, and he's killing it on the content side of things. They just launched like a news page, I think, which is another great way to share general content that comes back to the Mad Lads brand. And I think it's super smart. And, we need to see more of it and more pushing the boundaries on the expansion of these Web3 brands that we see, and those guys are fucking killing it for sure.
Yeah. No, I think Soul Jakey has now come up in 3 straight recordings that I've had. I don't know if
sick guy, dude.
Man. He's from my area, dude. I love Soul Jakey.
Who doesn't love Soul Jakey?
I love that guy.
Yeah, that is man. Soul Jakey's for the people.
And dude, fucking how am I forgetting, dude?
Raccs.
Fucking Raccs, dude.
Yes.
Yeah, fucking
dude.
Yeah, how can we fucking forget the legend and the man himself, Raccs? Raccs and Foxy Diff, dude, are some of the smartest fucking people in the space.
The foresight they have is unparalleled, man.
And their ability to ship things at incredibly high quality that covers such a base of anything that you could ever think about in Solana NFTs and beyond. Like, they've built on other chains and stuff too, but like the rate at which those guys put out shit, the UI of everything that they do is super fucking clean. And yeah, they're just smart. Like they have brought the Foxes to a place where it's an incredibly sustainable business at the time of having also such a low barrier to, like, there's super negligible fees on tools and open access, and those guys are fucking builders at their core. And on top of that, the branding that they've built with Foxes is super clean and digestible too. So shout out those guys. They're fucking
they're
legends, man.
Yeah, I just recently had a phone call with Raccs, and
Love that
we're
guy,
trying to
dude.
make a podcast happen.
Oh
So,
yeah,
sick,
he'll
sick.
come on. He's amazing.
Raccs
dude.
is a fucking smart guy.
I'm very much looking forward to that. He's one of those people that, like, when I first got into NFTs, he was like one of the first people that I was like, that guy's got it. Like,
Dude,
he
yeah.
understands
Smart.
this.
He's
Yeah.
smart as hell, man. And the foresight that they have, dude, like, just with like, their gamification of their staking and like their missions and stuff like that, they developed all of this stuff in 2021. And, it survived to this day. And like, in a place where metas come and go in, days or weeks, these guys have had the foresight to create something so sustainable and it's actually fun. And that's what I admire about the Foxes team, man. Like, they just can see into the future, bro.
100%. Yeah, they are very, very smart people. So, okay, so pivoting from there, getting into more of like music artists and things like that. When you guys are talking to somebody who's in the music industry, what's your like major selling point to them as to like why they should be interested in NFTs and the blockchain and this whole Web3 space in general?
I think that, as far as Web3 and blockchain, all that stuff goes, I think it's really important to offer an appealing platform that just exists, whether it's Web2, Web3. It just so happens that blockchain offers all of these amazing things that you could do, that makes the platform run much smoother, much more sustainably. From the artist perspective, you don't need to charge these exorbitant fees and stuff like that. Because, people have broken it down to what? There's Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. The transition from Web 1 to Web 2 was involuntary. Like, it was all of these HTML and like websites all just started changing to these things where you would log in and then have the username in the top right corner and all that shit. So I think similarly, to build a platform, I think peer-to-peer music sales, as far from whether it's singles, whether it's, utility-based like beats and samples, or if it's audiovisual art consumption pieces, that like is something that hasn't existed. And I think creating something where that can exist, whether it's web, whatever, is super valuable to artists. And I think that, that Web3 will sort of speak for itself in the ways that it can be applied, at least in our case. We're huge on, the infrastructure of blockchain. And I think building a platform first and foremost that is digestible, usable, and makes sense from all realms is the biggest selling point for the platform. And it's great for us because it sets us up for less friction. Like, we can go or building the platform to be set up in a way where we can go to these, people that are just in the music space, and then bring them to the platform and show them why. Here's all these reasons that it's better. And then be like, also, did you know, like, this is all like blockchain based, and this is really showing, the revving of the engines of fucking the chain and what's possible. And then, can branch into, use Raccs in the cool like media stuff that we mentioned before. But I think that's one of the important things.
I think another big selling point too is that, we've had artists come onto the platform and see success, and, the way that our platform works and compared to Web 2 is instantaneous payouts, it just seamless collaborator, royalty splits and stuff like that. Stuff that gets kind of complicated and muddy in the Web 2 space. It's all like trustless, decentralized. When two people collab on something, let's say they do 50% of each, like if two people collab on something and they each get 50% of the sale, like the sale is done instantly. As soon as that's bought, both parties are getting paid for that. And I think that like in a streaming era, where streaming is very dominant in the music industry, it's how most people find most of their music, and it's really great on the consumer side. But on the artist side, I think the repercussions of it have been, we've seen a major revenue stream for artists just dry up seemingly overnight once, LimeWires and Kazaa started hitting the internet. And because people, like, buying music is nothing new. We've been doing it for a long time. We've been doing it for decades. And, to have that dry up overnight was just super devastating to the music industry. It was at one point where the whole music industry was saying, like, this is going to ruin the music industry. It never ended up doing that. But I think the Spotify's and Apple Music's and stuff were a knee-jerk reaction to, put out the fire of having this major revenue stream dry up overnight, and being able to tell artists like, hey man, like, if you have 500 fans and you can get them to buy something for $2, like that's this many streams. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've seen like Shoddy came on and did like 1.2 equivalent million streams of sales in like 5 minutes. And he got paid instantly, and the collaborators got paid instantly too. So I think that's another really big selling point, telling artists like, look, you're getting paid instantly, you're getting paid fair, and we're reintroducing that album sales, that unit sales, back into their lives.
Yeah, and pushing for the diversification of what they do as musicians, like, yeah, just like Pat said, like to have some stuff for unit sales, to line up a plan for, those units, and for your super fans at the same time is setting yourself up for mass consumption with streaming and all that kind of stuff as well. I think diversifying as an artist just increases your chance for success.
Yeah, I mean, I even think about like, I'm 30 years old, and I remember the days when like Drake was just getting started, and like I remember, like, I mean, if you're under the age of 30, you probably don't remember the TV show Degrassi, which is where like Drake even became well known to begin with. Wheelchair Jimmy, right? Yeah. I'll put a photo up here for people who don't know. Yeah. But Drake was a guy who he was an actor, Aubrey Graham, who was he was a wheelchair Jimmy in Degrassi, right? Yep. And I remember when he first started coming out with music, and I was like, yo, this is Wheelchair Jimmy? Like, this is fire, right? And then I think about, like, okay, what if he had put out one of his singles back then as a NFT, right? And I could, because I was one of the OG people who was listening to him from the very, very beginning. Right. If I own that now, that thing would be worth a ton, right? Yeah. And so it's like the ability to support an artist, and then the ability for that artist to make far more money than they would if they just, you release a song on Spotify and you get 10,000 streams, you're not getting shit. Like, you're not $4. Yeah, like barely, if that. Yeah. And so it's like, the reality of it is, if you're able to put out a, some sort of NFT that's tied to your music, whatever, and even if it's something that doesn't say, hey, this is a rev share, something along those lines, it's basically like a token to remember this song by. And once again, it's one of their first songs. Like, that's got a lot of value down the road. And it's, the collector market is a wild thing. I think all the time you hear people that are like, when it comes to like sports, like I say all the time, I study the sports trading card world because I'm like, it's been here for 100+ years. Right, and like, it's got staying power. It's going to be here. It's continuing to grow. Every year you see new records break of like, oh, this card just sold for $3 million. And it's like, so that's something that I pay a lot of attention to, because I'm like, hey, the NFT space, we're new, right? Yeah. The sports trading card world has been here for 100 years, right? Yeah. And so you know, there's always going to be people that go, that's crazy. Why would somebody drop that kind of money on that? But the reality of it is there's always things that people drop that's crazy money on something, 100%. Right? So the collectible world is never going to go away. Yeah. And if you have the day, like there's no, up until now, there's been nothing that music artists can really put out that's truly a collectible for their community to really get behind. Like I can't think of off the top of my head one collectible that a music artist has put out that has any sort of value to it. Yet there are Mike Trout's rookie cards sell for millions of dollars, right? And it's like LeBron rookie cards sell for crazy amounts. But yet why is there nothing that's like, you know, the Drake equivalent of a rookie card, right? And it's like, that to me just makes no sense. And I think that's what NFTs and blockchain kind of enable. And I think where you guys have a really cool opportunity is if you guys, like the space that you guys are in right now, somebody who's in NFTs and people who are in music is a niche field, but like it's going to continue to grow over time. And you guys are in the unique position now of being able to take advantage of that from the beginning so that when it does hit that mainstream ability, you guys are the people that people look to in that space to really take it far.
100%, man. Yeah. I mean, the collectible space is an amazing space. And I think that, you know, it makes things seem slightly less nuts. Like when you see, you know, like I was referring to earlier, how when I first got into NFTs, I was like, why the fuck are people spending so much money on this shit? But like, you really start to realize that the collectible market is up to the value of the whole, like that's why they're NFTs, non-fungible tokens. It's not supposed to be an immediate, it's more of an asset than anything. And I think that, you know, you have paintings that sell for crazy amounts of money. And like, you know, you can display digital art, the same thing. And I think the ownership of that digital art is just as important. But like on the note of that, yeah, like NFTs really allow, you know, a music artist to, the world is their oyster, whatever they want to do to create a perceived whatever. Like if they want to give away a vinyl or give away some merch, like that's gated by their NFT, or if they just want to share it as, you know, a consumption piece that they're just like, hey, this is me and my process. Just wait 10 years. I'm going to hustle my ass off and see if, you know, if I can make it. And then, you know, it just opens it up for a way for them to connect with fans in different ways. And you know, we're still big on like, it's really important that artists hustle too. Like, you know, you don't just post your shit and expect somebody to come buy it just to support you. Like, although that is great and we love it, there is certain aspect you got to be showing that you're grinding, like, you know, whether or not like that you're going to be here in 10 years, let alone that you'll, you know, let alone have someone buy your stuff right now, like that you'll still be here, still pushing, still at least growing yourself in whatever way you can see. So
people reward longevity, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, we just talked about Drake. Like that's he's been relevant since I was in high school. Yeah. I'm 30 years old. I've been out of high school for, you know, almost 14 years, right? So it's like the, you know, the reality of it is longevity, people reward because people respect persistence, right? And so I think once again, it's the same thing with the NFT space. Is a lot of times we have the space moves very quick, right? And so a lot of times we have this like very short mentality of like, how am I going to survive in the next 6 months, right? And it's like, man, we've had music artists that have been making not dick that have survived for a decade. Like keep grinding, keep doing your thing. And it's the same thing of like we've seen, you know, professional athletes that had to grind and play in Europe and stuff like that. And next thing you know, we just saw the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals, and half their squad is undrafted, right? And it's like they still grinded and they made it. Now they're in the NBA Finals playing, right? So it's like, you know, at the end of the day, people reward persistence. The guy who just doesn't give up, the woman who just doesn't give up, the people who are just working their ass off and finding that niche, right? So the question I have for you guys next is, as project founders, obviously, I think when people kind of get into this space and decide, okay, I'm going to create a project, I think everybody has an idea in their head of what it's like to be a project founder. What are some of the hard aspects and stuff like that? What have you learned about yourself in the last, you know, month or so, and then in the time that you've been building the project? And what do you feel like is the thing that you're like the most excited for to continue to grow with, to be the best project founder you possibly can be?
Yeah, I found out that, you know, I thought I was going to be really scared of FUD and, you know, of people like, you know, dunking on us and, you know, like making fun of us for whatever they want to make fun of us for. It just is not the case. Like, in fact, like I use it as fuel, and I didn't think I would be that type of person. But it really has lit a fire under my ass every single time I see something negative. My first reaction is never to try and dunk on them. It's okay. All right. how can I change, that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what am I doing wrong, or what am I doing to perceive that onto them? And, I really, my stick-to-itiveness has really surprised me, I think. I think it's always been there. It's just I never really noticed it until now. Like, looking back on my life, through the music thing and, through life in general, right? Like, I always have been persistent, but I never really had, the type of confidence that, that I've got now. I've got a chip on my shoulder now. And, I'm super, super hungry to just prove everybody wrong in a tasteful manner, not to dunk on them or, insult them or anything. I really do have a hunger to prove them wrong.
I think there's something super, super powerful about turning somebody who hates you into somebody who loves you, right?
Yeah.
Because to hate somebody, you got to have a little love, right? Because there's got to be something about that person that elicits that emotion in you, right?
Yeah, big time.
So like, a lot of times I think, when people's bags are down, right? Like when I think about the projects that I've lost the most money, with, right? Part of it is like, I want them to prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Like if I'm like, man, I fucking hate this one person, right? Like I want them to be like, hey, and we just built, and like now the project's pumping, and I want to be like, oh, okay, well shit, now I love you,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
and it's like, and it's because when you put your money into things, you're financially involved with it, and part of that elicits a lot of emotion out of you, right? There's regret at certain times. There's hope at certain times. There's excitement at certain times. There's a lot of emotions that come out of investing money into something. But at the end of the day, if there's somebody who's tweeting out every day, I hate Pat, I hate Jim, that's somebody who cares. They want that to succeed. I'd rather have that person be like, I hate them, than like, I just don't care. Because the moment you stop caring, you lost that passion.
That hurts way more.
Yeah.
That hurts me.
And you can turn those people into fans at the end of the day. It's the same thing. Like my background, I've worked with models for the longest time, right? And I would always say to them, like, when somebody like comes into your DMs and just said something super out of pocket or super rude or whatever, right? If you just respond back like, hey, you know what? I hope you have a good day. It really takes the ability for them to shit talk you, right? How do you respond to that? How do you respond to something negative to that? It's so hard, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times those people respond back and they're like, oh, honestly, I didn't even think you'd see this. And they start to eat their words. And now that person is the biggest fan of you because they were able to contact you and have that conversation, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody's tweeting out like, I hate the Raccs team, they're a bunch of bozos, the mint, yada, yada, yada. It's like if you guys then reach out to that person, you're like, hey, you're obviously passionate about what we're, about the project. We want this to succeed. Trust me, way more than you want it to. But we also respect the fact that you want it to badly succeed. Let's talk about it. What do you like? What do you not like? What made you excited about it for the beginning? And like, there's so much that you can learn from somebody who's passionate, right? Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of times people get like in their feels about FUD and stuff like that. It's like, man, those are the people that you can learn the most from. The most people who talk the most shit about D-Gods back in the day are usually our biggest holders.
Yeah,
right,
big time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, all right, but Jim, what about you?
Yeah, dude. No, 100%. I mean, I think our ability to, it's an ever learning thing where you're reading the landscape, and I think that, with Boombox, we've been able to sort of plan things out and execute under a little bit less of, not a public spotlight, but people don't typically go out there and, start openly, they don't, criticize all marketplaces or whatever. But I think with Raccs, it's been a really interesting thing, like realizing that our team is really ready to do whatever works. Like, we are ready to pivot and ready to take in the feedback. And I think that's the most important thing, is to, listen to what people are saying at the same time as having your own opinions and having your own vision and seeing where you can somehow meet in the middle or kill two birds with one stone and do something that sort of pushes, our own internal vision that we have for the project forward, and at the same time adjust things. It's been a learning experience in terms of, making the calls as far as what we do on certain things, to kind of gauge, do I have the confidence in myself? Do I really believe that this is, or should I, sort of hear out the opinions of other, like, obviously want to hear people out, but as far as like, yeah, it's just been a test to the logic of why we do things. And I think that, I've typically been in Boombox just more of like a behind the scenes kind of guy, just working on like big picture stuff and, how Boombox and Raccs moves. But it's been just, you learn how fast the space moves too. I mean, you know, it's something that everyone kind of knows, but you really learn it firsthand once you're dropping stuff. And, you know, a week later, you're like, all right, cool, we're going to pivot and try some new stuff. So it's been, yeah, it's been cool. I think that, you know, there's some things that weren't necessarily, that are more so solidified the fact that, you know, if stuff doesn't go well, we're still going to learn from it. We're still going to keep pushing. We're still going to work on executing at an incredibly high level. Like, it's one thing to say, yeah, shit didn't work out and we're just going to keep trying. Like, but when we say keep trying, we wake up fucking boxing the sky like fucking Rocky. Like, you know what I mean? Like, ready to really fucking make shit happen. And I think that that's the ceiling that we, or not the ceiling, but that's the goal that we set for ourselves and for our holders and for our collection, is that, you know, you will never get less than the best we fucking have. And that mixed with a little bit of, you know, or a lot of intelligent execution and learning from past mistakes, and, you know, I think can go a long way. So we're excited, man. Like, it's been, yeah, it's like I said, like, it's a blessing and a curse. It's, you know, whatever's happened, but, you know, the sun's fucking shining down on us, and we're going to continue to fucking do our best to hit this thing out of the park.
Yeah. And I always say, I think it's a good thing sometimes to have things not go right off rip, because you don't learn from that, right? Like, when everything is like, my old football coach back in high school used to always say to us, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, every day would be Christmas. And it's been over 10 years, and I still remember that. And it's because it's like, it's that whole thing of like, when things are just good all the time, man, you don't grow, you don't learn. Like, dude, you gotta grow, you gotta learn, and that comes from humbling yourself and kind of going, hey, I had this idea that I thought this would be at this position, and it's not. Why is that? Let me grow, let me learn, let me figure out as a person what I need to do better, right? Even with like the podcast, I realized I got to become more efficient, right? I'm not there yet. I'm working on it, right? And it's something where, you know, I realized, okay, I need to do more of these Web3 meetups, and I've been doing, you know, I've been putting a lot of effort into making those happen over the last few months, right? And it's like, so, you know, all of it is a learning experience, and asking yourself, how can I be the best version of myself, right? And, you know, I know for myself, I'm a facilitator. Like, that's what I do a good job of, is like bringing people together and making connections happen with different people and getting them to start having conversation. And that's the shit I like doing. Okay, so then really lean into that, right? And then, you know, and then become, like, there's certain times where I just take a weekend and I just dive into YouTube, and I'm learning more stuff about AI and how to utilize that to edit my videos and stuff like that. And it's like, man, every day just wanting to be the best version of myself. If you told me in January that I'd be using AI to help edit my podcast now, I would have told you were crazy, right? But it's like, it's the stuff that we learn, and it's every day asking yourself that question, how can I be better? How can I learn from this? And, you know, and once again, I think that when you keep working at it, you'll find what works. And that's the biggest thing that I like. I was literally reading the story yesterday of the lady who started the company Solidcore. Do you guys have Solidcore in Toronto?
No.
It's a Pilates studio.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I'm a big Pilates guy.
Yeah.
Love Pilates. But she started it for, I want to say she put like $150K into creating Solidcore, right? And when we think about that, $150K is like a real shitty NFT mint, right? And she took $150K, and I want to say she ended up selling her business for like an exuberant amount of money. I think it might have been like $85 million, something. It might even been more than that. I want to say there was an 8 that started it. Might be more. But long story short, she built this business from $150K to selling it for $80 million. And it's like, that to me is such an impressive feat. And it really shows you how far money can go. And like, but once again, if she had millions of dollars to get that started, maybe she doesn't have that hunger. Maybe she doesn't have that drive. And so it's like, sometimes it's good to get punched in the face and come back swinging.
Everyone should get punched in the face. Everyone needs to get punched in the face once in their life. And unfortunately, you know, we just get punched in the face a lot, but it is what it is. We've become addicted to it. And honestly, I've become addicted to just, what am I doing wrong? Why is this happening? And I keep asking those questions constantly, every single day, all fucking day. I keep texting Jim, why? Yeah.
And being comfortable with that, I think, is something that's super important, you know, to the more and more that you do that, the less and less daunting it seems if you fuck something. Like, obviously, you know, you got to take personal accountability where necessary, but I think it's also, if you're too fucking hard on yourself and you aren't able to move past it, that's also a bad thing too. So it familiarizes you a little more with the process as it continues to happen.
100%. I'm looking up right now. I got to see how much she sold the business for.
Yeah.
I was right. 88. Okay, 88 million. Okay,
Jeez.
so 175K to 88 million. I was
That's
like, I got to make
crazy.
sure I got that right. But yeah, I mean, and it's like it just goes to show again, like how much ability there is, and I think the difference between people who succeed and the people who don't are the people who go, woe is me, life
Yep.
is hard.
Yep.
Yada. Bro, life is hard for fucking everybody.
Everyone.
Like
yeah.
it is, and that does not mean to not like, you know, that you can't feel bad for yourself for some period of time, but feel bad for yourself for like 20 minutes
Yeah.
and then get the fuck over and get back to work, right?
it.
Like there are definitely times when like, you know, when we've had the SEC suing Binance and Coinbase and FTX and, you know, all these different things, Celsius, all these different things that have happened in the last, you know, year, basically all in just the last year.
Yeah.
There's so many times where I've sat on this couch and I've been like, God damn it, can we just go
Yeah.
6 months without something, you know, fuck. And then I go, okay, hey, all right, now move past it. Move
Yeah.
past it and like, let's get back to work, right? Like, because the reality of it is that's why being successful is difficult, because it kicks you in the teeth. It challenges you,
Yeah.
right? And like, so, okay, so I want to, this is where I want to take it from here. For people that are, you know, thinking about getting into Raccs, people who are interested in learning more about Boombox and everything like that, you know, where do you guys want to take this in the next year? Like, what would you view as a success for both of those? And, you know, and then we'll go into things from there.
Yeah, I think, you know, being viewed as a success in like a theoretical sense versus a literal business sense, I think are, you know, separate things, but ultimately we want to cover both of them. Where artists on the platform for Boombox are having success, you know, they're able to find some collectors and some fans and continue to, whether it doesn't need to be just, it can be utility-based music, as I mentioned before, like selling their beats, selling their samples, and really build it to be the platform that, you know, showcases what Web3 can do and how it can impact music and how it can help people's lives and, you know, their careers, and, you know, showcasing these seamless ways in which we do that. But for Raccs, ultimately, you know, I think to build a culture and a community around this that is fucking cool, dude. Like that is genuinely like, there's cool branding behind, but like the feeling that it elicits from holding a rack, that it's one of those things that's, oh, I want to get into that community. It looks fucking sick. And like, I think it's this unspoken thing. There's a lot of shit in this world that you look at and are like, I fucking like this. Like I look at it and it's the coolest shit. And I think for Raccs ultimately to slot ourselves into that conversation and showcase, you know, the ability of Web3 brands to start branching out into things that get seen by many different people under different eyes and really expand what's possible. But yeah, ultimately, you know, I think it's important ultimately for all collections, they want to have a high floor price. They want to have a bunch of people who are happy to be in the collection, loyal holders, that, you know, we're able to create opportunities for, whether it be financial, whether it be in music, whether it be like I think ultimately the goal is that with Raccs, we're able to cement that and make that something that we look back on now and are like, dude, remember those fucking days when we were like, you know, stressed out, figuring out how to pivot and all this kind of shit. And I think everyone, you know, in every collection, and like people need to live their lives. If your dream of big things to execute, you know, live your life as if you're writing a story. And, you know, Rocky's more interesting because he fucking got punched in the face the first couple times. So I think that, yeah, like ultimately, you know, a sustainable platform for Boombox and a bunch of users, and for Raccs, yeah, the things I just mentioned.
No, that pretty much covers it for me. You know, I think I view a success for Boombox is, you know, having a bunch of users. You know, we've really made a difference in a bunch of musicians' lives, you know, where they wouldn't have had these opportunities elsewhere. I think that's a success for Boombox for me. And I think Raccs, you know, just like Jim said, man, like having a community of people that are proud to wear their rack, proud to be in the community, proud to know that, you know, we're leading the ship for Raccs. And, you know, I think that's ultimately the success. Not to say that we don't have that now. Our community is crazy, and, you know, we love them. We love them more than anything. It's just I want to do right by them. If they can, with their entire being, say, you did, like, I'm proud of you. If my community can say that to me, that's a success for me.
Yeah, man. And like, you know, as far as grand scheme though, I know it's possible for us to make Boombox into something that is an actual usable thing in the music space, that is a commonly used tool for artists to sell stuff between themselves, and really can, you know, cement ourselves up there with other platforms that have users, like, or a bunch of users, and, you know, ideally beat them, like, and do our best to make Boombox the biggest platform that it can be. And similarly with Raccs, like, you know, I know it's sort of a cliche that everyone wants to be number one and everyone wants to do that, but ultimately, like, as much as we love the grind and we I grew up fucking playing sports and all this kind of stuff, you know, everyone has a little bit of a competitive edge to them. And I think for us to push the space forward and getting ourselves cemented up there with some of these other amazing projects, I think, is ultimately the goal.
There we go. Okay, so here's how I want to end it. I want to give you guys each the opportunity to speak to people who are holders of Raccs right now. Why should they be bullish on the future of Raccs? If they're debating buying more, if they're debating buying into the project in general. I know you kind of just touched on that, but I want to give you one last opportunity to speak directly to Raccs holders, to people who are debating buying into Raccs. Why should they be excited about the future?
Because raccoon. No, I'm just kidding. They should be excited because, you know, we are no bullshit guys. We've been here a long, long, long time. And I think we understand what it takes to build a successful business. We've built successful businesses, both of us, in the past. And, you know, coming into Web3, we still have that same ideology. And, you know, we are never going to stop just going super, super hard for our collectors, for our holders, and just for our, you know, broader community, even including the Boombox community, right? We do this every single day with a passion that I've never felt inside me before in my life, and I can see it in Jim too. And there is no way we are going to let this thing fail.
Let's fucking go.
Yeah, dude. Fucking look at all the you, all you. Nah, but yeah, man, like, we are going to make this some cool fucking shit, and there is these ceilings that we're gonna reach as far as like scalability and pathway to cool content. Like, we've done cool stuff in the past that we, you know, haven't necessarily spoken about a ton in Web3, but I think our ability to turn this into some cool shit, like, I know you hear it a lot, but like, there's a bunch of stuff in NFTs that is pretty fucking lame, like, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I know that, you know, we understand what it's like to build something that is both technologically sound and at the same time, you know, makes you feel fucking proud and makes you feel like this is some really cool shit that I'm a part of. Yeah. And we will fucking die for our holders. Yeah. So just know that, like, there's not, if you fucking, someone's jumping you in the street, give Pat and I a call, we'll fly across the fucking world.
We're there.
Nah, but in all seriousness, we will, dude. Like, I mean, we are efficiently operating this so that we can continue to execute on a high level for years to come. And I think that's exactly what we'll do. And, you know, you see so many of these fucking collections and businesses and stuff who have these insane raises. Yeah. And, well, insane, I mean, like, you know, in the scale of business, raise what you can, but at the same time, they're like, they just stop believing in themselves. They stop believing the ability for themselves to produce results and sort of take a back seat and be like, oh, well, the market's like this, so we don't really think this is going to work out in the long run. And we're not those guys. Like, we're the guys to make sure that this shit works long term, and that every step along the way we're intelligently executing at the same time as relating to people on a fucking human level, you know? So yeah, we're excited. And, you know, yeah, like up until this point, you know, I've been sort of like behind the scenes, like with like just conceptualizing Boombox and Raccs and all that stuff. But I'm really looking forward to fucking, you know, connecting with our community and talking to them weekly in AMAs and Discord chats to let them know that this shit is the real deal. And, you know, we're going to keep pushing until the fat lady
until we
sings.
die, or until we're, you know, number one. That's it.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah. I love that mentality, boys. All right, drop your socials. Where can people find you guys?
Yeah, at Boombox Jim on Twitter, and that's the place to find me, at Boombox Jim.
There we go.
At New Dumb Money, or at PDoc on Instagram. Yeah, thanks a lot, Mark. This has been awesome.
been dope, Mark.
Yeah, boys, I enjoyed this.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this. And by the way, I gotta say, New Dumb Money might be one of my favorite names.
Fuck yeah.
Everyone always asks me like, why did you pick that name? I was like, because I come from a line of, you know, check to check families, basically both sides of my family, and like, you know, I was the first one to ever like stumble upon into wealth, like in the 2021 bull market. So that's my name, New. It's new money. It's dumb because it's JPEG money, and it's money. So
facts. I love that name. Love that name. So, boys, I enjoyed this. I'm looking forward to. I'm sure we'll run it back at some point.
Yeah,
but I
dude.
enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to seeing everything that you guys do with Raccs and Boom Box.
Appreciate it, brother.
But yeah, boys, enjoyed last night. Enjoyed today, and yeah, I know this is going to be. I'm excited for the future. So great conversations. I wish everybody could see the conversations we have too before the podcast. But that's when we're brainstorming.
There's a plot. We're cooking.
Yeah, that's when
let us cook.
Let the boys cook.
Let's cook.
Let them cook. So, Jim and Pat, appreciate you guys coming
Appreciate
out.
you, Mark.
And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll do this again
Yeah,
soon.
you're a fucking
Hell yeah,
legend,
man.
dude. 100%.
Everybody
Appreciate it.
else, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll chat with you guys soon. See you guys.